the Daily Fantasy Edge. I'm Peter Jennings. I go by CSU Ram 88 across the daily fantasy industry. And we are excited to be back here on the podcast. Adam Levitan had the stone nuts in cash last week, sweeping the board in head-to-heads, and it was an eruption spot for Julio. So we just got to kick it to Levitan right off the bat to give the news and notes and to gloat about his win in the four-man and to gloat about sweeping the board in cash games. So Levitan, what's going on, dude?
Yeah, not much. I don't really want to talk about that too much. Last week is last week. We're going to move forward here. We have a situation where Amari Cooper's hurt, which I actually think bad for Amari Cooper, good for Peter. We also have a situation where the bye weeks are done. This is a 13-game main slate. I think the biggest we've had since like week 5 or something. And this is also King of the Beach week down in Key West. Al's proxy winner is down there hoping to run hot for Al and beat out the 50 people for the King of the Beach title down there. And we still have the listeners with 0 wins in the four-man. It's getting hairy for the listeners here. But Al, King of the Beach week, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. As you can see, I'm basking in the sun in Los Angeles. It's cold here, man. It's like it reached all the way down to like 48 degrees this morning and yesterday morning. So like it's cold, winter is coming. My kid's school was closed today because there was a gas leak. So the Rugrats are running around here at home. I'm off kilter right now. I'm hoping that I can get it together by Sunday, but I'm off kilter right now.
Before you go back to Pete, strat for a 50-man live final. Are you going to play your cash lineup? What's the plan?
I mean, every week I make a cash game lineup, a leagues lineup, and then a GPP lineup. I'm probably going to play one of the cash or the leagues lineup, kind of like Pete does in the four-man. Essentially, it's just like attacking a small field tournament. What I typically do in live finals, and what I have done in live finals, is everybody tries to go so off the board and play. They try to play 3D chess. Right? And they're trying to outthink the field. Well, this guy's going to be too highly owned, so I'm going to fade him, and I'm going to play this guy. And every single live final, you hear people, well, if I had known that he was going to be that low owned, I would have just played him. So everybody's trying to outthink each other, and I end up just playing something that's very close to, if not a cash game type lineup with a high floor, players that have access to a ceiling, that gives me the opportunity of getting near the top, but trying to lock in a really solid top 50% cash with a chance at getting near the top, at some point during the day. That's worked for me in live finals more often than it hasn't, where I've had some pretty good scores. Haven't taken one down yet. Maybe this will be the week.
All right. Well, hopefully Al and the proxy can run hot in Key West. This week is very interesting, like Adam talked about with all the different games here. Any different strategy that you're looking at, Levitan, or just another week where we're trying to find the optimal lineups?
Yeah, so I think the more games there are, the more decisions there are to be made, right? And since we are on top of it, hopefully, and paying attention, hopefully it should be an advantage to us that there are a lot of games. I would be wary of getting overwhelmed and continue to narrow your player pool like you normally would. Speaking of which, narrow your player pool for the Listener League. It filled very, very late on Sunday morning. Did fill. If you want to play this week, I would recommend getting in nice and early, $5 entry, 3-max tournament. Go to DK Playbook, go to the landing page for this podcast. You will find the videos up there of all of us and Jerry and whatnot. And then you'll also find the link to the Listener League. So get in there and good luck.
All right. With that, we are going to jump into the games. All right, first up, we have the Vikings at Falcons. Adam, I know this game is at least intriguing to you with Julio going off, but unlike last week where he was in a dream matchup and the cheapest he's ever been, at least since 2014 or a non-Seahawks game, this is a spot where he's facing a very tough matchup and his price has come up. So what are the news and notes here? And you are the Julio whisperer, so what are you doing with Julio?
Definitely not the Julio whisperer. I've played him plenty this year when he did nothing. Devontae Freeman will be back from his concussion. Kind of takes Tevin Coleman off the board. Tevin Coleman is up at $7K. Devontae Freeman I would be more interested in if I was going to go there at $5,700. Obviously a difficult matchup against the Vikings. Yeah, so Julio Jones is going to see Xavier Rhodes. And as we saw on Thanksgiving, Xavier Rhodes is not an unbeatable matchup. It's not impossible to beat Xavier Rhodes. However, it is a difficult matchup, right? So like, if Julio goes off, people are going to be like, oh, all these idiots faded Julio because of Xavier Rhodes. They're crazy. Well, yeah, of course, Julio still can do well. I think he's far less likely to do well. And all the people last week that were like, Julio sucks. You can't play Julio. I would never play Julio at 7,700. Now they're like, you can't fade Julio. He's facing Xavier Rhodes. Like, it's so wild. So I probably will not be on Julio at elevated ownership at an 8,600 tag rather than 7,700. But it wouldn't surprise me if he plays well, even against Minnesota, Al.
I mean, I'm going to look for a little bit of a path of least resistance there and maybe go with a guy like Hooper, maybe go with Mohamed Sanu, who now we know at least in his locker has the ability to throw long touchdowns. So more access to a ceiling, right? I mean, for me, I'm looking at Minnesota's side. Atlanta really tough on outside wide receivers, a lot easier on slot wide receivers. So Adam Thielen every week has been in play every single week, remains in play this week. Interested possibly in tournament shares of McKinnon with as many targets and catches as Atlanta's defense funnels and allows to running backs. Like, they try to shut everything down on the outside and they push everything inside. McKinnon might be a little bit extra interesting this week at running back. Pete?
Yeah, I don't mind it. Obviously, spark freak athlete, can catch balls out of the backfield. Latavius Murray has been fortunate on the side of touchdown variant, so people will most likely be off him. So I like the call, given that you should get him at very low ownership. I'm also interested in your opinion on Stephon Diggs at only 6,200, Al. Adam, I know that we're going to be monitoring the Falcons situation as well with their corners, but Diggs at his price tag, I think, will kind of have lower ownership. I think people who want to play a Minnesota receiver are going to look to Thielen, which makes sense. But Diggs, obviously, you have a great track record with him, Al. Any love for the American hero?
I was right about Steph Diggs once. It's like, you have a great track record with Steph Diggs. I got him right, really right, one time. But with Trufant in concussion protocol, Adam, do you have any updates on him, it being Thursday right now? I mean, it's something to monitor. If Trufant's out, then yeah, I like Diggs a lot more than I would like him if Trufant's in.
Yeah, have not seen anything. The reporting out of Atlanta isn't great, but we should know by Friday for sure. And yeah, one note on Thielen, he runs like 53% of his routes from the slot, and Desmond Trufant has only been in the slot 43 times all year. So Thielen is going to have the best matchup, especially if Trufant is in. But yeah, Steph Diggs is just so talented. Like, I'm never going to argue against him.
He crushed Norm too, right? So like he's beaten really tough cornerback matchups so far this year. Not saying he's completely matchup proof, but if it's not like you have to shy away from it, especially as Pete said at the price at 6,200. But if Trufant's out, that kind of clears the road a little bit for him.
Right, and he does have better splits indoors as well, which obviously sets up well here. Makes sense, too. He's obviously explosive athlete, and on the fast track, he can make those long touchdowns happen more easily. So I think he's an intriguing play as well. Let's move to the Texans at Titans, Adam. What are the news and notes here? And talk to me about DeAndre Hopkins, who has just been so impressive, even with all these bad quarterbacks, including Savage.
Yeah, Rashard Matthews is questionable with his hamstring issue. We've seen Marcus Mariota really struggle for volume. Like, their coaching staff is just so inept. Like, it's so brutal to go out there and watch them be so conservative with Mariota, and then also make them watch DeMarco Murray average 0.9 yards per carry and Derrick Henry average 6 yards a carry, and like, they make no change. It's just so crazy. So that's scary from the Tennessee perspective. Obviously, this is an awesome matchup at home against this Texans defense, which has crumbled. DeAndre Hopkins at 7,300, I expect to be one of the highest owned players on the slate, which is crazy to say because his quarterback is Tom Savage. But since Savage has taken over, DeAndre Hopkins is getting 12 targets a game, which is a massive number for a player at 7,300. And for a player who's in a good matchup with this Tennessee defense, he'll see a lot of Adoree Jackson. And I mean, DeAndre Hopkins is just like such a freak. Didn't feel great about playing him on the primetime slate, on the Sunday night, Monday night slate, but against the Ravens, but it worked out anyways. Like, he's just an absolute beast. So I think Nuke is going to be very highly owned, Al. How do you feel about him at 25 to 30%?
I mean, that's the thing. The way that roster construction seems to be setting up this week, I mean, we have no Le'Veon Bell. Does he exist anymore?
I know.
Is he still in the NFL?
You got to play primetime slate.
There's no $1 million to win on the primetime slate, so I'm not playing that one. I play the Sunday slate. There's $1 million to win. And on that slate, there's no really high dollar running backs. And the way that we like to play, Adam, you and I, and Pete as well, we like to jam in definitely 1, probably 2, and sometimes 3 really high price running backs. Look for targets that we can find at the low end, but there's no guys to really jam in at running back anymore, especially with Lev Bell off the main slate for a month. So there's a lot of mid-range running backs available, which is going to force people into these mid to high priced wide receivers. I agree with you that DeAndre Hopkins is going to be a part of the standard roster build for the week. I don't have a problem with it because I'm going to let people figure out where they're going to get their 12 to 15 targets from. I'll lock in mine with Hopkins and be okay with that.
Oh, yeah. And I thought it was really cool. Monday Night Football, they highlighted one impressive thing that doesn't get talked about enough with DeAndre Hopkins. The fact that he plays every single snap is incredible. He also gets better in the fourth quarter, and they went into extensively how he trains a bunch and runs every day and does all these things to have higher endurance, and he modeled himself in that regard off Jerry Rice. I thought it was awesome to hear kind of the story with DeAndre Hopkins, and it's true. I mean, you watch him, he is just burning these corners and outworking them in the fourth quarter. And in this matchup, I mean, it's a pretty good spot here for him. And at that price tag, he got cheaper after that performance. I think he makes a ton of sense. On the Titans side, it's really hard to have faith in anyone. I would say if you're going to take the troll route, cash game, bust, GPP winner next week, Corey Davis could make sense. Adam, what are your thoughts on Corey Davis, considering you touted him hard and bashed Rashard Matthews?
Look, Corey Davis has not played well this year. I mean, flat out has not gotten separation. His catch rate is really poor. And they're just throwing so little. I think Mariota had like 25 attempts. They'd rather like run DeMarco Murray into the line. So yeah, I think there's a lot of concerns with Corey Davis. So we'll see. I'm more interested in Delanie Walker and played a bunch of Delanie Walker last week. Worked out. He is up to 5,600 now, but we'll talk about a tight end later. We expect to be very highly owned in that same price range. I think Delanie could make for a reasonable pivot as he's now healthy.
Yeah, I do like Delanie Walker. Obviously, he is the prime target, especially if Rashard Matthews is out. He definitely is one of those guys that's in play. There's a lot of tight ends in play, considering we have the flow chart in 2 spots, which I know Al will hit on. So Delanie Walker, definitely in play. Hopkins, those are the 2 chalky plays. If you're going to take the troll narrative, I do think Corey Davis could fit the bill. Let's move to the Chiefs at Jets and talk about a bust last week. Kareem Hunt and this Chiefs offense has been abysmal. Now they're going against this Jets team. Adam, what are the news and notes here, and is it possible that the Chiefs get it going?
I don't have any injury news and notes here. What I do have is that, like, Alex Smith is who we thought he was, right? Like, this is a guy who is not a good fantasy quarterback. This is not a vertical thrower, and I think we were fooled through the first part of this season into thinking a guy at age 33 in his 13th NFL season is now, like, some great fantasy quarterback. So people are calling for Patrick Mahomes now. Alex Smith is obviously going to keep starting this game. It's a reasonable matchup against the Jets. Nothing special. Kind of is what it is. Robbie Anderson is the man. Hashtag Team Preseason, former president of Team Preseason. As Al knows, Robbie Anderson will be graduating to Canton one day once he gets out of the Team Preseason protocol. But he's up to 6,300.
His bust is almost ready. His bust is almost complete for Canton. He's just going to be enshrined at the end of this season. They're not waiting until he retires. He's a shoo-in.
Yeah, so he has a good matchup, but he's 6,300. I mean, it is expensive to play Robbie Anderson now. He's like almost as much as Kareem Hunt, who is down to 6,900. I think my favorite play in this game would be Travis Kelce as a pivot off of Jared Cook, who we expect to be very popular. I mean, DraftKings made Jared Cook 5,400, and we'll talk about why later. But Travis Kelce is only, and I know 1,600 is a lot, but Travis Kelce, I think, is far more reliable than Jared Cook, and he's 7K. So, I don't know. I think there's players in this game who are overpriced, like Ty Fluke, like Robbie, and then you could make a case, I guess, that Kareem Hunt is overpriced, but I thankfully got off him last week, and I don't really plan on getting on him this week.
Okay. Robbie Anderson doing great, price going through the roof, right? Touchdowns, 5 straight games. You know whose price has not really gone up at all in spite of his last 6 games is Josh McCown. 5,500. I'm always looking for cheap quarterbacks that I can play in cash, stream against bad defenses. Kansas City Chiefs, good at limiting efficiency, right? They're like one of the league's best in terms of, in fact, the league best in terms of completion percentage against, but they're facing off against Josh McCown completing 67% of his passes on the year. Over the last 6 games, since week 6, Josh McCown has averaged 19.6 fantasy points per game. We need 15, 16 points out of him? Season average 17.6. He's got multiple games over 25 points in that streak. He's got multiple touchdowns in 6 of his last 7 games. This should be a $6,200 to $6,500 quarterback, but because of his name and the team that he plays on, he's $5,500.
He is intriguing. I will say that. And with Robbie Anderson catching long touchdowns, it's easier to pay off that tag. Also, Austin Seferian-Jenkins is a really nice weapon for him as well. And we've seen this Chiefs defense get torched by the pass. So I do like that call. Ty Fluke, obviously I got to bring him up for the hashtag brand. He does have big road splits for whatever reason. Obviously he's not in consideration in cash, but tournaments he's in play every week because he's more likely than basically any player in the NFL to have an 80-yard touchdown. So he's intriguing. Kareem Hunt, it was painful to watch him play last week. You have the other Hunt playing. You have Charkandrick West in on most third downs. And this Chiefs offense is just really sputtering right now. So I'm off the Chiefs. You could play the troll narrative again with these guys. But for me, I am off of them. Adam, any other final thoughts here on this game?
No, but Al has raised his hand in our Zoom chat, which means he has something to say.
More likely to score an 80-yard touchdown. Tyreek Hill, Alvin Kamara.
Or Robbie Anderson.
Well, it's definitely not Robbie Anderson. That's one of the only things, boys.
It's probably Kamara at this point.
There's been some
every week.
There's been some bad macro calls by me this year. Amari Cooper being the lead. But Alvin Kamara, I got a ton of crap on the Twitter machine saying, oh, Pete's conviction play is Alvin Kamara yet again. I saw something in Alvin Kamara that, it's rare you see these freak athletes. And I know sometimes it's harder to predict, and we'll talk about him a little bit more as we get to that game. But he clearly is a freak athlete and can bust a big play at any time. So We'll talk about him more. Ty Freak, I think, still probably more likely if you say 80 yards or longer, but it's definitely close. Any final thoughts here, Levitan?
Nope.
All right, let's go to the Broncos at Dolphins, and another depressing spot for me to talk about. But we do have hope with the quarterback change that the Broncos have made. What are the news and notes here, Levitan?
Yeah, 2 quarterbacks back. Jay Cutler will be back under center for the Dolphins, which I'm not sure is a good thing for them. And Trevor Siemian will be back under center for the Broncos, which I think is pretty clearly a good thing for them. Like Osweiler and Paxton Lynch are hashtag very bad. So I think Emmanuel Sanders really sticks out to me. 4,900, cheapest he's been since September of 2014. He is on the injury report with an ankle issue, but when Siemian and Manny Sanders have played together, Manny has averaged around 8.2 targets per game. You don't see that kind of volume for a good player in a good matchup at 4,900 very often on DraftKings. So I'm certainly interested in Manny. I'm interested in DT at 5,300. And then I think the big news in this game is Damian Williams is out with a shoulder injury and Senorise Perry is out with a concussion. They are down to Kenyon Drake and practice squad call-up in the backfield. Kenyon Drake may not profile as a feature back per se, but he's very good in the pass game. And at this point in the Dolphins season, they should be in evaluation mode and seeing if Kenyon Drake can carry the load, can touch the ball 15 to 20 times. This matchup against Denver is not great, but for 4,900, which Kenyon Drake is, his target projection is in the 4, 5, 6 range, and his carry projection is in the 12, 14, 15 range. That's a lot of work. So I've seen mixed reviews on Kenyon Drake from like a talent perspective. You guys know I try not to get into that. Al, how interested are you in Kenyon Drake?
I mean, there's a lot of running backs in that price range that I'm interested in this week. One of them is dependent on an injury not being injured anymore, and that would be Jamal Williams. So if Williams is not viable, then Drake becomes more palatable to me. I like Hyde at that range. I like Deion Lewis at that range. I like Kenyon Drake at that range. There's a lot of guys to play, and this is what I was getting at earlier, that there's so many mid-range running backs that are available that's leading us to the what I believe is going to be the most common roster build on the week. Kenyon Drake definitely in that grouping, I would suppose. Now, there's a wide receiver cornerback matchup that we can take advantage of here, possibly with Aqib Talib suspended for, mimicking Debo once again and ripping the chain off of the Raiders' best wide receiver for the second straight year. Now, the remaining cornerbacks and the matchup that they're facing, Landry might get shadowed in the slot because the best remaining cornerback for Denver, Harris, does go into the slot a lot. He's their nickel guy in the slot, and he may just play there most of the game. Anytime Landry's there, he goes there. And with Cutler back, that kind of might mean that Parker at 4,500 is something that I have not seen a lot this week, and I didn't even write up in Best Buys this week, but the more I think about it as the week goes on, the more I like him as a tournament option, knowing that Cutler is who Cutler is. He locks in on a receiver, and when you've got the highest volume receiver on the team covered by a really talented cornerback and a weakened exterior cornerback playing in lieu of Aqib Talib, that might be a week for Parker to actually break out.
I don't hate the call. The Broncos have given up the most passing touchdowns, I believe, in the league. If you would have told me that coming into the year, I would have laid 100-1 or something crazy like that, that the Broncos would be leading the league in pass touchdowns allowed. I think it's a good call. I think Drake is interesting as well. I think he's a fine play, maybe not the best play, but if he gets the volume, this Denver defense hasn't been nearly as good this year. So I don't mind that play at all. The one guy that I absolutely love, Adam already hit on, is Emmanuel Sanders. There's a clear connection with Trevor Siemian and Emmanuel. I actually like that stack quite a bit, and I don't mind a double stack with Trevor Siemian, DT, and Emmanuel Sanders because of the saving that you're getting across the board with those guys. The one concern here is this game is not projected to have a ton of points, but in the event that there is some points, we kind of know where it's going to be. So I think that aspect of this game is nice. All of them in play in all formats for me. And on the Dolphins side, like we mentioned, I think Parker and Drake are the best plays. Levitan, any final thoughts here?
Yeah, just a quick point on Denver. I mean, we have seen this before where you have such a narrow concentration of where their production goes through, and with their running game sputtering so bad, like Devontae Booker leading a three-man committee, but really no one shining. Like, if they score points in this game and everybody scores points in Miami, it's likely to be through DT and Manny. So, I'm not as concerned about playing guys in a low total game when we know where it's going to go.
Right. Great analysis. All right, let's move to a game that does not have much fantasy goodness, especially no fantasy goodness, in my opinion, on one side, maybe a little bit on the other. We have the Colts at Jaguars. I do have a favorite play in D.D. Westbrook here, Levitan, who I know you love, and I believe he is the president of Team Preseason right now.
Yeah, current president of Team Preseason, D.D. Westbrook, certainly in play here with Rashaan Melvin out for the Colts, their top defensive back. And then also we know Vontae Davis has been cut a while back. So they're really bad in the secondary. D.D. Westbrook ran a route on 34 of Blake Bortles' 37 dropbacks. I expect that to continue as long as Allen Hurns remains out with his ankle injury, which I think that he will. The other news and note I have here is Leonard Fournette is practicing in full for the first time in like a month. His ankle seems completely healthy now. We know he's going to lose a little bit to Chris Ivory. We know he's going to lose a little bit to TJ Yeldon, but he will be the feature back. I think that he isn't a great high floor play, but I mean, he's a baller and should be a really good game script. And Al, DraftKings has, I think this is the first time I've ever seen this, 4,500 if you want to play the Jaguars defense this week.
It's impressive.
That is steep for a defense. Like, their defense costs more. Like, I have plenty of guys under 4,500 I'm interested, not on defense. Are you willing to pay 4,500 for a defense?
I mean, I don't know if you want to or can really afford to get there optimally with your cash game lineup, but for tournaments, I think that it's definitely a spot that I want to be overweight on this defense, considering what they can do, considering the opponent that they're facing. Indianapolis giving up a ton of sacks every week, leading the league, and 7 more than the second most team in sacks allowed. The Jaguars get a bunch of pressure. They lock down outside wide receivers. T.Y. Hilton not going to be able to really do much this week, in my opinion. They shut them out the last time they played in Indy. Now they're going to Jacksonville. As you said, they get Fournette back. I think I like too many Jaguars on offense, and I'm going to have to pare back what I'm trying to do here. Obviously, Bortles had his second best game of the year the last time they played. Marquise Lee at 5,200. Somebody who's in play for me with 33 targets in his last 3 games where he was not shadowed by Patrick Peterson, coming off the week where he was and got only 2 targets. I think that he's in play. Leonard Fournette's in play. The defense is played. Bortles is in play. I like too many Jags. Please help.
I think it's fine. I mean, the only concern that you have with someone like Blake Bortles is kind of what happened the last time they played. I mean, I believe he was on pace for over 500 yards after the first half, but because they were just destroying the Colts and ended up winning 27-0, he didn't have to throw. Mm-hmm. So that's the concern here is, if you're playing Blake Bortles in tournaments and stacking him up with Marquise Lee or D.D. Westbrook or whoever, the concern is, are the Colts going to be able to do anything to make him have to continue to throw? I still think he's a good play at his price, given that he had one of his best games, and this is a dream matchup. I like the receivers like you guys talked about. My favorite tournament combination is definitely paying up for Leonard Fournette and paying up for this defense. Fournette obviously has been very disappointing the last couple of weeks. He had some weird comments, missed the team photo, talked about how he doesn't like playing in the cold, all these things that are negative signs. But now he's practicing in full, and he's going into a spot where the Jaguars should pummel the Colts. So I like the stack of Leonard Fournette and the Jaguars defense. I think it will be relatively low owned, and I think you're getting a nice bit of leverage paying up to be contrarian with the Jaguars defense. Levitan, your final thoughts here on this game?
No, I think we hit it. Let's move on.
All right, let's go to the Buccaneers at Packers. This spot here is interesting. I don't know if I trust the Buccaneers coaches, if they've seen what's happened with Andrew Luck. Seems risky to me to get Jameis Winston out too early with a shoulder injury, but apparently he's fine and good to go. So I am interested in Jameis Winston and the pass catchers, in particular Mike Evans. What are the news and notes here, Levitan?
Yeah, really interesting game here, Battle of the Bays. Let's start with the running backs. Doug Martin is in the concussion protocol. If he can't go, we'll see Jacquizz Rodgers, and he'll be supported by the likes of Peyton Barber. Jacquizz Rodgers, you can look back through his first 3 games, I believe Doug Martin was suspended. Like, it was nothing special, but Jacquizz is going to get his touches. He plays fairly well in the pass game. He's okay at 4,300. The big injury, as Al already alluded to, is Aaron Jones is back practicing with his knee injury. They have said that they don't know if Aaron Jones is going to be able to play Sunday. What we do know is that if Aaron Jones and Ty Montgomery both miss again, Jamal Williams is playing like 95% of the snaps, playing well in the pass game, getting the goal line work. It's not often we get 3 down plus goal line backs in good matchups at 4,700, which is what Jamal Williams is. Certainly something to watch there. Pete alluded to Jameis Winston. Yeah, like, he's back. I don't think they would put him back out there if there was any concerns whatsoever. I think it's different from the Andrew Luck situation in that Andrew Luck actually had surgery. He had structural damage. Winston just had an AC joint sprain. So I would have to presume that he's healthy. And this Packers defense is 28th in yards per attempt allowed, 25th in passing yards allowed, 22nd in pass defense DVOA. And Jameis is only 5,600. Mike Evans, 7,100. D-Jack's 4,700. I don't have a problem with McCown. I think Tyrod is okay in that range. Bortles is okay in that range. But I think I like Jameis best in that range. Al, I don't know. You like McCown better?
I think there's a lot of guys in that range. I mentioned Bortles. We like McCown. I like Hundley this week going against Tampa Bay, who has been the most giving team in terms of quarterback scoring on the season, especially the last 4 weeks where they've allowed 302 average passing yards per game. They've allowed the most deep touchdowns, 10. They've allowed the most deep yards, 122.8, and the most deep completions per game, 4.5. This season. Now we've got Davante Adams, who you could pair with Hundley as well, somebody I think is underpriced at 6,500, considering the amount of volume that he's gotten since Hundley took over at quarterback. Every other wide receiver on Green Bay has essentially just become nothing. Do you realize that the corpse of Jordy Nelson is just roaming around right now? Zombie Jordy Nelson is roaming around and not getting any sort of love whatsoever, but Davante Adams really kind of took off, kind of like Bitcoin. Since Hundley took over at quarterback. He's getting basically 9-10 targets a week. He's still scoring touchdowns. He's got more catches than the next guy on the team has targets. How can we not play him at 6,500?
This is the first I've heard a correlation between the rise of Davante Adams and the rise of Bitcoin. That's a new one.
I dig deep.
I'll say this. We go ahead, Pete.
No, I was just going to say that is a new one. And Jordy Nelson, I was just going to mention, I mean, clear guy who benefits with Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers throws him open. Now you have someone like Hundley. I think Davante Adams at this point in his career is more explosive and a better receiver than Jordy Nelson.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, we've seen wild range of outcomes for Brett Hundley. We've seen him look like literally the worst quarterback in the NFL. And
for his first couple starts, yeah.
Yeah, and then we've seen him play unbelievably well when I didn't think that he could in that Pittsburgh game, like, unbelievably well. So I don't really know what to expect from Brett Hundley. I guess you can make a case that he's getting better as he gets more reps. I'm still concerned that his floor is pretty low, but as Al said, the matchup is absolutely unbelievable. One other guy I wanted to mention with Jameis back, I think Cam Brate comes back into play. The like kind of old shower narrative between Ryan Fitzpatrick and Cam Brate didn't work out, where they may have shared a shower at one point together in Harvard. That didn't work. Cam Brate has like one target in each of Ryan Fitzpatrick's starts, but he's 2,900 now with Jameis.
Obviously, Ryan Fitzpatrick was in Skull and Bones, and Brate was not. So he's not going to throw the ball to the guy who's not in the secret society.
Yeah. Matchup with the Packers, not great for tight ends, but whatever. I mean, Brate's 2,900.
Secret Society, Bitcoin. Al is hitting all the gems here in the analysis of the Bucks at Packers. I do like Hundley quite a bit. I think stacking with Devontae Adams makes a ton of sense. I love both these kind of quarterback stacks because you have a clear kind of group of guys that you can run it back with. I think Evans is a great play. I think Deshaun Jackson is a good play. So I like this game with the passing attack, and we'll monitor the news to see if Jamal Williams is also in play. Let's move to the Lions at Ravens. This is a game I don't see as much fantasy goodness from. You have kind of a three-headed monster with the Ravens at running back, and Joe Flacco has been putrid. We haven't targeted really any players against the Ravens, especially when they're at home. So, Levitan, do you have any plays in this game?
Man, not only do I not really have any plays, I don't really have any news and notes. I mean, Amir Abdullah and Alex Collins missed practice on Wednesday, but I suspect they're just kind of veteran days. We'll certainly monitor that to see if we can get those backfields thinned out. But as it stands now, I don't know, Al. I don't really see much here in terms of news, plays, injuries. This is like the most boring game I've ever seen.
I mean, do we even have to talk about it? If they play a game on Sunday and we don't roster anybody from that game, does it happen?
We're not rostering anyone with the exception of Adam, who has had quite the love affair with Jeremy Maclin. Are you finally done with Jeremy Maclin? It's not an Amari Cooper type problem, but it is a mild problem, I'd say.
Yeah,
something to monitor.
I think I've played Maclin like once, 1.5 times this
year,
maybe twice.
Liar.
Primetime slates. I know you've gotten him in there.
Oh well, yeah, the mini slates for sure. I play everybody on the mini slates. That's where you get to have the most fun.
Yeah, don't lie to us, Levitan. I see what you're doing over there. At least I admit my problem. The first step is admitting you have a problem. So. All right, let's move on. We got the Patriots at Bills. Very interesting spot here with a very high total, which is pretty much the case anytime the Patriots are playing because they are expected to score so many points regardless of where they're playing. But this is a tough spot going to the Ralph. What are the news and notes here, Adam?
It recently came to my attention that it is no longer called the Ralph. Like once we've reached like the hashtag corporate life like pinnacle, we can no longer even be the Ralph. Like everything now is just out the window to the big money. It's so tilting. Chris Hogan remains doubtful with his shoulder issue. We have seen Brandon Cooks absolutely go bananas without
Were you going to say Bazinga?
I was going to say I didn't know what I was going to go with there. It was a game time decision.
You're caught between Bazinga, bonkers, and bananas.
Yeah, I mean, Brandon Cooks is like over 300 yards, 18 catches in his last 3 games, just going completely nuts. We know Philip Dorsett's a non-factor, so it just makes sense. And against this Buffalo defense, which I think is better against the pass than the run, but it's still not like an imposing matchup for Brandon Cooks. He's up to 7,700, remains firmly in play. On the other side of the ball, Kelvin Benjamin likely to miss again. Jordan Matthews, Charles Clay likely to play through their knee injuries, but banged up. Zay Jones is expensive now, not that I was too interested in him anyways in this matchup with the New England defense, which hasn't allowed more than 17 points in a game since week 4, I'm sorry. So, yeah, I mean, I think that the running game is interesting on both sides, at least in play. But I would say, Al, that Brandon Cooks, once again, remains my favorite play on the Patriots side.
Yeah, Brandon Cooks, but like if we're going to pick a running back, I seem to be leaning towards Dion Lewis coming off of another 100-yard game, 15 touches once again. Not getting a lot of love in the passing game, You know, as much as he was a couple of seasons ago before the injury, right? 2015, when he was having a massive year before he got hurt, the first few weeks looked like an absolute revelation. Even when LeGarrette Blount was on the team, he was getting value essentially in the first half of games and then a little bit of mop-up duty in the second. But right now, even with his 100-yard plus performance, Rex Burkhead had 2 goal line carries last week to vulture both touchdowns. And it's not like they didn't give Lewis a carry. He did have a carry inside the 5. So, like, it feels almost like, hide a coin whenever you're trying to pick which New England running back is going to be better. So, like, Adam, Pete, I'll let you do it, right? Like, here's the dime, right? So, like, I'm going to cover it up. Now, look, which hand is it in? So, is it Burkhead or is it Lewis this week? Because one hand you get the money and the other hand you don't. So, which hand is it, Pete? Right or left?
I wish I knew. And James White will probably troll us this week. Oh. There it is. I did not see that. This is a tough spot for me with these running backs. They're obviously very interesting. New England, one of the highest team totals on the board. Bills, since trading Marcel Darius, have definitely been exposed on the ground. Patriots, I mean, they're just one of those teams that's going to score a ton of points, and you just don't know where it's going to come from every week. I like Cooks. I think he'll be chalky, but the challenge is, how many guys are you going to play in this game? Like, what do you guys think about Gronk this week? Here's another guy who every single week he plays, he could be the game changer on the slate, or you could be paying up to get 8 points. Levitan.
This is the narrative street spot for Gronk.
Yeah, from Buffalo. I've never gotten Gronk right ever. Like, ever. I'm just like so sick of getting Gronk wrong. I'm probably just I think I'd rather play Kelsey this week, but I don't know, man. I have no idea.
Friends and family game, Adam.
Friends and family game. What do you want me to say?
He's crushed Buffalo every time he's gone to Buffalo.
Yeah.
So if you've gotten him wrong all the time, you've never played him in Buffalo?
Probably not. I don't know.
Well, there you have it.
All right. Deep analysis right there. We got the friends and family, the narrative. We got everything covered. Play the Patriots. The Bills, you can run it back with someone like Zay Jones or Charles Clay, or if you really want to get sneaky, play LaShawn McCoy. But
did you see Zay Jones levitate on the sideline after?
That was impressive.
Good Lord. They had like a Zay Jones challenge, like to see if other guys could get up that way, and nobody could replicate it.
Well, if he's a Jedi, how much are we boosting his expectation for?
I mean, like, if he can convince cornerbacks to just not guard him on back shoulder or fade routes, then it's got to boost his touchdown expectation, no?
Yeah, if he's Yoda, if he can really get inside their minds.
This is not the route you're looking for.
Yeah, this could be pretty strong for Zay Jones. All right, let's move on to the 49ers at Bears. We are now officially in the Jimmy G era, Levitan. That is the big news and notes. What else you got for us?
Yeah, that's about it. Jimmy Garoppolo will make his 49ers debut. And, I think Jimmy Garoppolo is probably good, but when a guy comes from the Patriot system, and he's been awesome in the preseason, going back a few years now, but when you come from the Patriot system, like, I always think, well, maybe it's just the Patriot system that makes you look good. So I'm kind of scared to kind of dive into the 49ers pass game here as they go on the road to a Chicago defense, which has had some injuries, but I still think is okay. Carlos Hyde has seen massive target share lately. Is that because of CJ Beathard, or is that just part of their scheme? I tend to think that Garoppolo will be more aggressive. He's a more confident player. I think he'll be more aggressive going downfield. I think we have to reduce Carlos Hyde's target projection, but he's still probably a pretty strong play given his price, right? Like, what is he? I think 5,900 or 5,500 or something like that. So yeah, and then on the other side of the ball, I mean, you can make a case for Mitch Trubisky. I will not be going there. But you can make a case just for him just based on how fast San Francisco plays and how bad their corner group is. So I'm not too excited. I've been burned by Jordan Howard before. I'm not too excited to play him just in case San Francisco comes out and plays well.
Okay, I like Carlos Hyde. 50 targets over the last 6 games, right? Absolutely love that sort of volume for a wide receiver, so why would I not love that for a running back? Mike Clay this morning was talking about how he's the biggest gap in OTD for actual touchdowns on the year with the amount of volume that he's had and goal line work. He should have 8, so there should be positive regression coming as long as the volume stays the same. But with the changing quarterback, have they been feeding him because Beathard can't get the ball anywhere else? Or are they going to continue to do that with Jimmy Garoppolo, who has a better arm and a better downfield threat, even though they don't have the weapons on the outside to go with? So assuming that things stay somewhat similar, they have a matchup with the Bears, who have allowed the 5th highest amount of completions to running backs on the year. They allow a ton of targets to running backs. They allow an 81.2% completion rate on those passes to running backs. And the best stat that I've seen this week on Carlos Hyde, 49 catches this season. He had 48 targets the last 2 seasons combined. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, and that's what you want on DraftKings is these pass-catching backs. I do think we have to reduce it just a little bit. Obviously, a quarterback change, you can't just assume everything's going to be the same. They still have Goodwin, who they could throw to. He's a bit of beast in terms of air yards, but he is not converting those in an efficient way. Is a track star, so he could be the big play if you want to go with Jimmy G. But for me, the only plays really that I'd be interested in, especially in tournaments, would be Bears defense and Howard. I don't think Howard's a cash game play at all because of game flow concerns like Adam mentioned. But in the event that the Bears do what they want to do and play good defense and run the football, he does have multiple touchdown upside. If you look through his game log, I believe he's been under 8 points like 5 times, but he has 4 or 5 games over 100 yards rushing. So very polarizing player that makes sense for tournaments, and especially given the matchup, I do think that there's merit there. Let's move to the Browns at Chargers, and we got some news and notes here, Levitan. We got Josh Gordon back on the field. I mean, if he's scoring touchdowns and burning guys when he's drunk and high on the field, what is he going to do if he's hopefully sober?
The resurrection. I think, well, we could make a bad joke and say that maybe he was good because he was drunk and high on the field and now he'll be worse. We could also say that he hasn't played since 2014. We could also say that he has a matchup with the Chargers, who have the league's best pass rush and best corner duo in Casey Hayward and Trevor Williams. It is not a plump landing spot for Josh Gordon. They say they want him to play a ton. I find it hard to believe he'll be able to play a ton. Hasn't even been able to practice with the team that much during the course of this season. So those are concerns for me. Also concerns for me with Corey Coleman, who has seen a ton of work. And Corey Coleman has had brutal matchups and still kind of performed. This is probably not a matchup where I would want to be on him, but he's going to see 8 targets at what, like 4,300 or something like that. On the other side of the ball, Mike Williams, the rookie wide receiver for the Chargers, is out. Keenan Allen has been white hot. I mean, Keenan Allen is just destroying people out there. I think 23 catches on his last 27 targets, 3 touchdowns in that span. He's 8,300 now. He was 5,900 2 weeks ago, Al. That's one of the biggest price jumps in 2 weeks I've ever seen. Keenan Allen should avoid Jason McCourty on at least half of his snaps, but are we willing to pay 8,300 for Keenan Allen?
Where are you going to spend the money? And if not for Keenan Allen, for whom? Because if you're going to get that sort of time, I mean, you can pile up legitimately between 3 wide receivers and somebody in the flex, another wide receiver in the flex. You can theoretically pile up like 45 to 50 targets this week with the running backs that are available in the mid-range. Why aren't you going to play Keenan Allen this week? Is it just because the price has gone up? Obviously, you're not going to expect 40 points out of a receiver, right? But 20 points seems to be very much in play. Avoiding McCourty is important. His volume seems clear. The only thing that scares me a little bit is if this game gets completely out of hand in the first half and it's something like 27-3 and they deflate the ball in the second half, that he doesn't get as much work, right? And he doesn't get to pile up, and he'd have to basically essentially have whatever he's got at the end of the first half. But if they scored 27, 30 points in the first half, you'd have to assume that Keenan Allen has been a major part of that. The other player that I like as well in this game, obviously, is Hunter Henry. The volume is going up and down with him, at least in terms of snap counts and routes run from a game-to-game basis. So, like, he's not as safe as maybe a Tyler Kroft last week or other kind of fringy tight ends that we've been streaming against Cleveland, because we just don't know if he's going to play all the snaps that we want him to play. If he's going to play 80+% of the snaps, I'm locking him in even at the accelerated price of 4,700. I think that DraftKings was quite aggressive with their pricing of both him and Cook this week. Cook for more reason than Henry, but I still think Henry's in play.
Flowchart.
Yep.
We got the next flowchart coming up here in a second too. So
Yep.
we got flowchart galore. I like Hunter Henry quite a bit. I like Keenan Allen. Melvin Gordon is intriguing given the volume, but he's been very inefficient. The Browns were stout against the run. They did get destroyed by Mixon last week. They've had some injuries, so That's another interesting spot. My favorite play by far in this game, though, is the Chargers defense. Adam talked about it. Best pass rush, best corners. That's a recipe to get sacks and turnovers, which is really what you want with defenses. So I like this spot quite a bit for all the Chargers. I could be convinced on any of them. Adam, any final thought here?
Yeah, we didn't mention Phillip Rivers at 7K, I think is fine. And yeah, I mean, when you talk about run defense, and I talked about this a little bit on the solo pod, it's like there's going to be so many opportunities for Melvin Gordon to score because Deshaun Kaiser is going to turn the ball over and give short fields, and game script's going to be in the Chargers' favor. Like, it just sets up well for running backs. So Melvin Gordon, he's a little bit more expensive than I'd hope at 7,400, but I certainly think he's in play.
All right. I do agree with that. Let's move on to the Giants at Raiders. Big story this week is the Giants benching Eli Manning. We also have the Amari Cooper injury. So what are the news and notes here, Levitan?
Yeah, Geno Smith will start. I mean, look, I know Geno Smith is like a laughing stock, right? When he was last an NFL starter in 2014, he averaged 15.5 DK points per game. He will get Sterling Shepard back here. I'm not saying Geno is better than Eli Manning. I think he gives them a better chance to move the ball offensively. Eli Manning has just not been able to do anything for this offense when Odell Beckham has been out. Geno Smith has been good in the preseason. By all accounts, has been good in training camp. I actually think he'll play okay here. It's not a great spot. You know, he doesn't have Beckham, doesn't have Marshall going on the road across the country, but it is a good matchup. So I'd probably be scared to play Geno in cash, considering we have Tyrod, Gabbert, Winston, Hundley, McCown, whoever else you want to play cheap. But I think Geno can play okay. On the other side of the ball, Amari Cooper not expected to play with ankle and concussion. Michael Crabtree is suspended. I think one of the biggest questions on the week, Al, is Raiders pass game. No Janoris Jenkins for the Giants. Seth Roberts has been a red zone monster for the Raiders last year. Cordero Patterson is an athletic freak. I think he'll be the number 2. And Johnny Holton will be the number 3. And then we also have the flow chart with Jared Cook. So Seth Roberts is only 3,700. How do you compare him and Jared Cook?
By height. I think Jared Cook is again priced aggressively, but he's seen 5 targets in a long streak of games at this point, especially for a tight end. Has had good red zone share, and now he's got the 2 guys that are in front of him on the team in terms of market share out. So he's got to get at least a few more looks and targets, maybe 6, 7, 8 targets this week. He's going to get red zone looks if they can get into the red zone, which they should be able to against the Giants. And the Giants have allowed big games against tight ends every single week of this season. The flow chart is the flow chart for a reason.
Except for Vernon Davis.
Except for Vernon Davis. But didn't Niles Paul have like 3-4 catches in that game?
Yeah. He had like 3
It was
catches.
just strange. It was ridiculous. But I'm still going up against that. Like I said, like the flow chart is 21 of 22 on the season right now, in terms of, you know, wide receivers besting what their value expectation is. So it's going to be challenged this week with Hunter Henry and Jared Cook being priced up. I like Seth Roberts at his price. I don't know that I want him in cash, but I do like him in terms of a tournament play, especially with Janoris Jenkins just gone.
Yeah, Jared Cook priced way up. That's the concern, like you guys talked about, but still a great play, and we'll see red zone looks, and I do expect the Raiders to be able to move the ball. Geno Smith, we'll see how he plays. The Raiders defense really has never been an option, considering their lack of pass rush and their lack of getting turnovers. But if you wanted to pull the trigger, this would be the spot against backup cornerback Geno Smith, who has given a ton of fantasy goodness to opposing defenses in the past. Let's move to the Panthers at Saints here. Alvin Kamara, the most expensive running back on the slate. He is the epitome of, low volume, but just smashing. He's the Kareem Hunt from the beginning of the year. Adam, what are the news and notes here? And is Kamara just way too expensive now?
All right, let's start with the news and notes. Big question is the cornerbacks for the Saints. Both Marshawn Lattimore and Ken Crawley were able to get back in practice on Wednesday. Makes me think they'll be able to suit up Sunday, which is not good for Cam Newton and Devin Funchess. Greg Olsen looks like he might miss after aggravating his foot injury last week, so we can watch that. But yeah, I mean, the question everybody has is how expensive is too expensive for a guy who's only can project for 12 to 15 touches at the running back position and cost $8,400. I actually think that Kamara is, like better than these other fluky guys like Chris Thompson, Ty Fluke Hill. I don't even know. We can probably go back to like Doug Baldwin's sick run at the end of 2015 or whatever that was when he was scoring like 2 touchdowns a week. I can't think of any more of those right now.
I love how much all that tilts you. I love how much it sets you off when like guys have like sick runs.
Yeah, because I don't play it and I just lose all the money. So of course it's going to tilt me. So I won't be going to Kamara at 8,400. But yeah, I mean, I think a decent amount of people will, maybe 15%, 15 to 18% of people will probably go back to Kamara here, Al.
I mean, you got to have like a sprinkle of them in tournaments, right? But like, I don't think he's a cash game play at 8,400. There's too many other plays to be made. Now, could you throw him in like a small field, like a 3-max tournament as a GPP lineup in that? Definitely, because you're going to get him at low ownership in a tournament like that, or a single entry tournament where you're going to get him at massively low ownership and have high upside. But like on the amount of volume that he's had and the long touchdowns that he's scored, that's just not sustainable. We've seen it with Kareem Hunt. We've seen it with Leonard Fournette. We've seen it with Tyreek Hill. We've seen it with all those guys. So at some point, the regression monster is coming. I don't know how I can predict when it's coming and when it's not. It is what it is. I'd rather play Mike Thomas. If I'm going to play somebody in New Orleans, I think that Cam Newton is in play here with the big games that he's had in the past at the Superdome. This is a stackable game from a GPP perspective as well. Funchess is the Panthers pass catcher that intrigues me the most, even including McCaffrey.
All right. I don't really have any other additional thoughts here. I mean, I think Drew Brees is one guy that is price tag that is intriguing. Obviously, the Saints have been playing better defense and been running the ball so effectively that his production has seen a big dip. But at home against this Panthers team, I think he'll be somewhat low owned, and I think there's always upside if the game flow works in his favor, like stacking him with Mike Thomas that Al just talked about. I think that definitely makes a lot of sense. Kamara, I've been on Kamara every single week playing him. I'll have a little tournament exposure, but this will be the week where I get off him relative to where I have been. One of the few bright spots just in general in terms of the long-term calls this year for me. Let's go to the Rams at Cardinals here, Adam. This is a spot where we want to take some Rams, it looks like, but we have some matchups to take it into account. And on the other side, what do we think about Larry Fitzgerald, who was shadowed last week by Jalen Ramsey for, a high percentage of his snaps?
Yeah, Blaine Gabbert, who I think, we talked about for sure. I don't know what the Cardinals were thinking to start out, but for sure better than Drew Stanton and Blaine Gabbert. I think, much like Geno Smith was like a laughing stock, but probably isn't as bad as people think. Blaine Gabbert's 4,700. It's not the best matchup, but he has 5 touchdowns in his last 2 games, has some rushing mobility. I think Gabbert's in play. And yeah, Fitz obviously didn't do anything against Jalen Ramsey, but in the games before that, he's played really well, seen around 10 targets per game. I'm okay with Fitz even at his accelerated age. Never love playing old guys as we get into December here. But obviously the play on the other side with Robert Woods likely to miss again, with Sammy Watkins being shadowed by Patrick Peterson, we will see Cooper Kupp see a ton of volume again. We'll see Josh Reynolds get a chance once again. So I think Kupp, he has been priced up to 6,400. I think that is a fair but not egregious price out for Cooper Kupp in this matchup.
Yeah, I don't want any Watkins. I agree with you on Kupp. I think that the Cobra Kai is in play this week with McVay and Goff and Kupp going to the All-Valley Championship once again against a bottom half pass defense. And we can avoid Peterson, who is going to be on Watkins at least half the time. I would assume Kupp spending some time in the slot. Reynolds missed practice on Wednesday with an ankle, so we're going to have to monitor that going forward. He's obviously a value play that's in play, at least for us, somebody that you have to consider. If he misses, probably going to have more shares of somebody like Seth Roberts, or we'll figure out who else is going to play. It's going to be Pharaoh Cooper. Mike
Thomas, Pharaoh Cooper, anybody but Tavon Austin. They're like, let's just put anybody out there except for Tavon Austin.
Yeah, when McVay was in Egypt's land,
they did some weird plays to Tavon Austin, and it did not work. So
he's the backup running back basically now.
Sad days for Tavon Austin. Glad I have not rostered him this year. That is one leak that I did plug up a little bit coming into the season.
It only took him playing 0 snaps per game for you to plug the leak.
Not be interested in him ever again. Pete going on the record. I am not going to have any Amari Cooper in week 13, guys. I'm cured.
Oh, so many leaks that I don't know how we're staying afloat here, guys, but we're trying. I love the Cooper Kupp call. I think that makes a ton of sense. I don't mind playing Jared Goff in this spot either. I think he'll be relatively low owned on the road. We've seen big upside from him, and I think this could still be a really nice game. Like running it back with Larry Fitz, who I think is a nice kind of buy low, given that people are going to look at his game log, not realize he was facing the best corner last week, at least the best corner he can go against. He's lucky that he doesn't have to face Patrick Peterson. So I like Larry Fitz, and that's really it. I don't mind Blaine Gabbert, but I don't think I like him as much as someone like, say, Trevor Siemian. With that, we are going to go into our conviction plays. All right, Adam, you give us your conviction play first. I'll give mine second, and then I'll toss it to Al for his conviction play and to end the show.
Were you going to say Manny Sanders? Because I don't want to steal yours. If you were going to say Manny Sanders, I'll go someone else.
Of course I'm saying Manny Sanders. What are you doing?
Ashley is saying Manny Sanders.
Okay. You guys are stealing my whole setup here.
Okay, I was gonna say him. What do you want from my life? Okay, I will go with Jameis Winston, and I know it's a little risky considering the shoulder injury. I know it's risky considering he's going on the road, but this is a awesome matchup. I don't think that the Bucs will have any success running the football, and then you have these two really good wide receivers in a matchup with a really, really bad secondary. So Jameis back to inspire the team, get some crab legs, yada, 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 and he's just so cheap at 5,600. So I'm going to go with Jameis.
All right, well, you guys obviously know who I'm going with after that banter. I'm going with Emmanuel Sanders. I was trying to make my wife happy. We were watching local news, and Emmanuel Sanders has a segment on the local news. He seems spry. I think the ankle injury is behind him. He's got Trevor Siemian throwing him the football, and he's the cheapest he's ever been since 2014, like Adam mentioned initially in the podcast when we were covering that game. I want my wife happy wife, happy life, so I am hoping, and I do have conviction, that Emmanuel Sanders will have a big game against the Dolphins. What's your conviction play?
I just want one bit of clarification here. Emmanuel Sanders looked spry on the local news.
He's looking dapper. I mean, he's looking fresh. He's looking confident.
Was he zipping around the newsroom?
They were like, hey, let's see the ankle in action. No, he looked good though.
All right, that's
my wife's words, not mine.
Fair enough. My conviction play, I'm going to stick with the chalk. DeAndre Hopkins. I will just eat the chalk and take the 13 to 15 targets from one Tom Savage and ride it all the way as far as I can. I'm a target monster. I want to roster target monsters. That's what I want to go after. It's what I'm going to keep going after every single week. So for Adam and for Pete, I'm Al. If we don't win a GPP this week, we hope that one of you guys do. Bye, everybody.
We are promoters at DraftKings and also avid fans. Our usernames are Adam Levitan, Al Smizzle, and CSU Ram 88. We may sometimes play on our personal accounts in the games that we offer advice on. Although we have expressed our personal view on the games and strategies in this podcast, they do not necessarily reflect the views of DraftKings, and we also may deploy different players and strategies than what we recommended in this podcast.